I don't need a diva rock star salesperson. I need someone that's good that can follow a process because my process works.
Written documentation allows me to manage the processes, right? So
Yeah.
I don't hold producers accountable to me. I hold producers and staff accountable to the process.
Hi, everybody. So I have a special guest here today. This is our agency school client of the quarter. We have Joel from Coachlight Insurance, a longtime fan and friend here. So I'm not going to do the intro. He's got a great story that I think everybody needs to hear. So Joel, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit of how you got started in this crazy insurance space.
Sure, would love to. So I started out at Olivet College. They're one of the most renowned kind of insurance schools in the area. When I first went to school, I thought I was going to do chemistry. 3.5 years into that, realized, that's not really what I want. So like most of us in the independent channel, I grew my wings at State Farm. I was kind of there on and off for 2 or 3 years, and then moved up to Grand Rapids as a commercial insurance broker. So that's kind of where we're located, is in Michigan. With all sorts of extra challenges and the typical insurance things as well. After working for other agents for a while, I just kind of felt like, maybe there's a better way, right? Maybe there's a different way, using kind of some of the tools available and some of the things that I learned in college. And so I actually opened up Coachlight Insurance Agency a little bit ahead of schedule, was shooting for a fall launch, but certain things kind of pushed me into an earlier launch. So we opened July of 2020 to friends and family, and then kind of fully open to the public as of August 1st as a scratch agency with absolutely zero in revenue.
Welcome to COVID times, too.
Yes. Yeah. No shortage of excitement.
So coming from the captive side, sometimes they kind of look down on the independent side, like we're all price shoppers, et cetera. Was that your experience, or did you have a little bit more of an open mind to the independent side in your world?
Well, my transition was kind of interesting. So prices started going up like crazy, like 10% on renewal. Now, by today's standards, most people listening to this are like, I'd love to have that back right now, right? And when I say it out loud today, I'm like, man, what was I complaining about? But I was in the agent aspirant program as a team member at State Farm, working to kind of get my own office. And when these huge price hikes hit, it really took me off guard. So I went back and talked to some college professors and things like this. And they said, well, there's this channel called Independent, where if one carrier decides to make some changes, you can move that business over to a different carrier and still retain the revenue, still retain the relationship.
Yeah.
My claim to fame when I was a State Farm agent, our customers would go shop and they'd find a policy a couple dollars cheaper. And I'd say, sure, you found the policy a couple dollars cheaper, but there's no way an agent that offers 15 carriers knows that policy form as well as I know mine. And I think it's worth an extra $5 a month to stay with us.
So you use reverse psychology there.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. That was my only disdain toward the independent agent. But since being independent, there are some areas that's true, where they know the policy form through and through because they only have one policy, right? But in the captive side, we still weren't void from changes on the policy, right? So policy language would change, new forms would come out. How long would it take to figure that out? And also, we have a lot of great resources on the independent side. I really underestimated that. And I think you don't know what you don't know, right? And so a lot of things follow ISO forms. And of course, you can always call the carriers. I think in the captive model, in my experience, the underwriter and the agent were more adversaries, right? And on the independent side, it's more friends. I can call my underwriters. They're happy to answer any and all questions about policy form because they want things to be correct for the customer too.
Yeah. They're more like coaches, helpers, like they want to win the business, where the underwriter, when you're captive, it's like it's coming to us one way or another.
Exactly.
So you started during COVID and you're like, we have no money coming in. We have no policies. It's obviously kind of a crazy, chaotic time. You're in the state of Michigan, which for those of you who don't know, you don't want to go into Michigan if you are not from Michigan, because it's a completely different insurance state of mind. When I tell people some of the craziness in Michigan, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah.
I joke with people that Florida's homeowners insurance market is our auto market.
100%. Yeah. you guys have some, and I know every year they try to change it and change laws and everything else. I don't know if you guys will ever get that through, but between forms that have to be signed and lifetime payouts and everything else, Michigan's just its whole different animal of auto insurance. But tell us a little bit, like, so what was your approach, right? Like, you've got no policies, you were pretty successful at State Farm. So how did you decide to structure this agency? Because we were just joking before that when you share this with other people, some people are like, oh, wow, I don't know if I could do that.
I think for me, I didn't have a structure already in place, right? And I didn't have
Is it sell
customers.
policies to make money?
Right. Right. Yeah, but also we didn't have like a management structure. We didn't have a way that we had done things for years and years, right? Which is a disadvantage when you're looking at the revenue numbers and
Yeah.
it's a big goose egg, but
Yeah.
it's an advantage when you're trying to take an honest assessment of the current tools available and figure out, what do we do, right? So when I launched the agency, I'd been in Grand Rapids area since 2015 on the independent side as a broker already. Well, here we're not allowed to call ourselves brokers. So as an agent already. So I had a lot of relationships, some that really helped me and sort of pushed me to kind of start and said, hey, we think you can do this. Was a real estate partner of mine and a mortgage banker partner of mine. And so a lot of the early clients came through referrals of them while I was kind of setting up and figuring out like, how do I build processes, right? And now I'm an agency of one. And how do I go out and do some prospecting while I answer the phone and all this stuff? So in the early days, it was a lot of referral driven from my natural market that I had very intentionally developed over the last 7 years here. And then I didn't market to any customers, but some of them found me, especially some business customers, right, who were looking for me. And it's like, hey, where did Joel go? So they found me on LinkedIn, and a few customers came in that way. I think that was maybe, but even customers that moved over, we're talking about maybe 100,000 in premium, not in revenue, right? So I'm still pretty low numbers, but I kind of had a vision early on. I've always been interested in like Roller Coaster Tycoon and like these types of video games, right, as a child. And one of the things that I realized in those is that the more you invest in your theme park or you invest in, whatever that video game is, then that drives in more revenue that gives you some flexibility to do other things with. And so I think when I first opened the office, we had about 9 months worth of savings in our bank account to kind of float our house. And I sort of realized, okay, any dollar that comes in, if I can reinvest it, and at the time, every dollar I reinvested, I could turn into $3.
That's
And so
amazing.
I figured that out pretty quick and said, okay, I need to reinvest this into paid leads or marketing support or whatever it took, taking referral customers out to lunch, because any dollar that I put back in turns into three, and I have 9 months to turn a dollar into $3 as fast as I can so that our house kind of lands on a soft pillow.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's amazing to me too is like, I think maybe that was like the chemistry background of let's get the right equation. I don't know. I know you didn't eventually go to chemistry, but I think that mindset of how do I analyze this is really, really key. Cause I've always been impressed whenever we've spoken, just like, hey, we buy X, we get Y, how many calls your salespeople need to be on. Like you have done the math. So it's more about the recipe than about like the people are very important, but the people follow your process. And I think for you, and something we preach all the time is like, I don't need a diva rock star salesperson. I need someone that's good that can follow a process because my process works. The attitude of the diva doesn't work. Not our diva, Steven, but a diva of that can come in there. So
Excluding the insurance diva.
yeah, the insurance diva. I don't want anybody like sending me hate mail like you don't hate Steven. I don't want that. That's not what we're saying. But it's already been impressive to say, hey, so maybe if you don't mind sharing, like so you started Scratch 2020, like where are we premium wise? Like what's the size of the agency or where do you think you'll be by the end of the year?
Hopefully around 2 million by the end of this year. So that would be basically 4 years and 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things for me that really tripped with regards to the processes, though, like you were kind of speaking about that a little bit, was when I first started hiring my first staff, because I realized like there's so many hats, right? I constantly told my wife, like, I didn't realize everything there is to do as an agency owner.
Right.
And you think but you don't. until you're the one in the seat. And then it's like, oh my gosh. I hired my first employee and I knew what to do. I'd been doing it for 12 years or whatever, right? Or 10 at that time, maybe. But trying to articulate it and so I started on this journey of how do I take 10 years of insurance experience and funnel it into somebody as fast as possible without overwhelming them, right? Because you can only hold on to a loose fire hose.
Well, and you have to sell, right, to keep things going. So you almost have to, it's hard to slow down to speed up sometimes too.
Correct. Yeah. And what I found was pretty interesting is that I was like trying to manage the people and then trying to lead the processes. I'm sure I stole that from somebody, but like I would get like all upset about, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And like, what are you talking about? And then try to like lead with enthusiasm about like, yeah, we can do this and blah, blah, blah. And like not write the processes down. Right. And so it kind of created a toxic environment with the first few employees. And so really creating written documentation allows me to manage the processes, right? So
Yeah.
I don't hold producers accountable to me. I hold producers and staff accountable to the processes. Hey, what happened? Let's look at the processes. Let's compare what you did. And if the processes need to change, let's tweak them. Let's work together, right? But it allowed me to
you didn't
manage.
follow it, so let's tweak you.
Yeah, right. One of the two things, right? But so through that, it allowed me to be the leader that I really wanted to become and the leader that I wish that I had, which is one who manages processes and leads people, right? I think a leader is come with me, follow me as I do this. Hey, check this out. This works. Let's walk through this door together. And that doesn't happen when you're managing people and trying to lead unwritten processes. That was a very important shift in my career. And it just flipped that light bulb on.
But I just think in my heart, like what you said is like, hey, we got to manage the process. And so many agencies, I think, try to manage the people. And we go into agencies and to be like, well, I don't know if Sally will do this process. And I'm like, why is that Sally's prerogative to follow the process or not? Well, she likes to do things her way. But in an agency, to be scalable, to be sustainable, to be, a real solid business, I can't call you and then call Sally and get two different experiences, right? Like, and there's a recipe behind it. So why does Sally think she knows more than you, the owner of the business?
Yeah.
No, there is collaboration. I think you did a great job just explaining that. Like there is a collaborative approach of let's talk through if there's a bottleneck or, something we could do better. Sure, let's try it. But that is in the spirit of teamwork, not in the, I'm not going to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think I was listening to a podcast or reading a book or, who knows, right? Everything, yeah, yeah. Everything I do is regurgitated from somewhere, but they made the point of at some point, everything is sales, right? So like getting people to follow processes. I tell our staff consistently, hey, we don't use our cell phones here, period. The reason we don't is because if there's an issue, E&O claim that ends up in court, you don't want to be without your cell phone for 2 weeks, right? And, that sounds so simple, but explaining it in a way that puts it in their perspective, in their shoes, right? I also tell people if I have some agents, usually it's agents, not service reps, that don't want to follow processes like documentation. Come on, I need to go on to the next.
That. This is new, Joel.
Yeah. But what I tell them is, look, if this lead came in from a referral partner versus one of our other sources, and they call me and say, why didn't anybody ever call this person back? We're a team here. It's us, right? And I need to be able to stand up and say, actually, we did call them at this date and time, and this is what they told us, and this 100%. Date and time, and this is what they told us, rather than, well, I'm not sure. Let me talk to the team and get back with you, right? So even I think getting staff buy-in comes down to sales on a lot of this stuff, talking with them and explaining to them, why it's important for them, right? And I don't know that I think people do care. Good employees do care why it's important to the agency. But I think people really care about how does this make a difference for me, right? And I think they remember it that way too, better.
No, I like that. We always say, if you walked into your kid's classroom and the teacher was texting, would you be pissed?
Yeah.
Of course I would. I would go right down to the principal's office and report that. I go, you're protecting what people work really hard for. Why should you be distracted by your cell phone?
Yeah.
And sometimes that resonates. Sometimes it's an addiction to the glowing box. So I remember when we first talked, you had called me. I forget, I don't know if it was just to pick my brain or it was a while ago. I remember it was a CVS in Skinny Atlas, New York. And I think I was trying to get cold medicine because I was battling a sinus infection. And we had a great conversation kind of about your agency. And I think you maybe were looking to try to scale some of your training and maybe had stumbled across us. Does that ring a bell? Am I recollecting correctly our introduction?
I remember all of that except for which insurance question that call was about. I do remember you grabbing cold medicine, but I don't remember which of the plethora of issues you've helped me with
Well, then we talked a little bit about cover desk and DAs, and I think we got that squared away with you. And I remember this specifically because you already have this recipe of how the agency was running. And I think you were looking to kind of scale like, hey, how I'm running thin and I don't have the time, but we need to grow. And I think you had a lot of questions like, would our sales brains match up? Because
yeah, that's right. I really what I was on the hunt for, I remember now, really what I was on the hunt for was somebody to be like a part-time
sales trainer.
Yeah, sales leader for the office or sales trainer. I'd worked through a few different companies before and they just didn't get our process. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand how to take, because we were scratch, right? And so most people's sales process, and I'm not knocking anybody here, but most people's sales process is how to close a referral, how to close an inbound lead, how to call a win back, how to call a whatever, right? I might be the first person to say this, but when you're scratch, you don't have a lot of win backs to call in the agency, right? So our process very much was referrals from mortgage brokers and real estate. And then once we got enough money, really before I had anywhere close to enough money, we started doing paid leads, internet leads, and using, which I know is a dirty word in the independent space,
but you've been able to be profitable about it because you have a good sales process. Like the paid leads they're a dirty word because they're putting it on top of people who don't have a sales process. They would rather take the call in and shoot the breeze for 4 hours where you're in and out and you know exactly about how long that call needs to take and how to multi-line it, like the best way to explain Joel is like that he's like a ninja assassin. Like I think you find it, you do it, you repeat it, and then you do enough volume of it that it becomes just second nature. Where I think a lot of agents buy paid leads, they don't do enough volume of it. So they never get to the sweet spot of making it like a repeat, easy process.
Yeah, if you're doing it well, you can close anywhere from 2 to 5% of the leads, depending on your carrier mix in your market. So if you're buying 5 leads a day for 20 days, that's 100 leads, right? And then you're going to be upset that you only closed 2 new policies that month. So we had hooked up. I had sort of started to figure out the game, and I had realized I didn't have enough time to dial all these leads myself. And so we actually hooked up with a different company called the Teledudes, and we used their telemarketers to dial the leads. I got a lot of help from other people in that group, kind of explaining to me their processes. And then a lot of the people in that group are captive agents. So, they explain their processes. Great, awesome. Very thankful for relationships that I built in that group, but they needed to be tweaked for the independent space a little bit. So yeah, definitely volume, right? Like we were doing about 30 paid leads a day per producer, plus telemarketer, plus a special CRM that we had custom built on top of for dialing cadences and all types of stuff. And yeah, then our expectation was closing 1 a day. But when you're buying that many leads, you can negotiate a price amongst the vendors. That's more reasonable. And our cost per sale, we were looking at, let's see,
this is what I love about Joel is you can ask any number and he can pull it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess I'm proving honesty here, but our cost per sale was like $150 per household, right? So it was $150 for the first policy. Our second policy is free, right? And so,
and by the way, Michigan auto rates are not inexpensive, people. So just as a warning.
Yeah, our average household right now is $3,200 in premium, and that includes. I mean, we have like 2.15 average policies per household, something like that. So,
which is above industry average by far. Average is 1.7.
and some people talk about loss ratios, right? They're panicked about loss ratios and internet leads and these sorts of things. With Progressive, we had a couple bad losses. Interestingly enough, the customers that totaled one customer totaled multiple vehicles in a given year, but those were not from internet leads. Those were from referrals, right? All of our other carriers across the other 4 years, well, let me say it this way. Our aggregate loss ratio from internet leads is below 60%.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And that kind of goes back to the data that you were talking about, right? The data is that you have to have a process in place. We have a script, we train on it every morning. We call it a standing meeting. That's like a 15 to 20 minute thing. Generally, what I try to do is cover one insurance training, one insurance topic or something like this, and then cover one sales topic, right? So maybe we work on a particular objection that's new, that's difficult. Like when Cure Auto Insurance first came into the state, that threw a whole nother, do you guys work with Cure? And, people were really grinding hard on us about that. So, we role played that throughout the week, right?
Yeah.
Because your team's either getting better or getting worse.
Well,
So
and if they don't want to role play, they're not meant to work for you. Like,
Right.
like, that's part of the culture. And I think over time, your team realizes this is beneficial and grateful Joel is doing this, not,
Yeah. The first time that I force a producer to do what I'm asking them to, their face kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
But then they realize that it works, and I was doing it for their own benefit.
Right.
They remember
you want to enjoy this? No, you don't enjoy it either, but it's important. So we do it. It's like I say this, like, I don't like burpees, but they work. Role playing works. Like, you don't have to like it. It just works.
Correct.
And just, I know I just want to honor your time here too, but so tell everybody, like, how do you use our agency school, right? Because I think that, we've got so much stuff in there, but you guys have taken a really good approach to like how you use our training.
So I love to learn and I love to teach, and I like to understand things. I push back. In one of my first conversations with Kelly, I said, "Hey, I'm not challenging you, but I'm going to ask you some tough questions because that's how I learn."
Your wife was actually the one that sealed the deal.
Yes. So that's why I use the school, is because I need to understand. I really need to grasp it. I had some bad experiences with other consultants in the past. Never have with Kelly and her team, but with other consultants. So I needed to enter into it slowly and fully understand. How do we use the school? That's a tricky question. I use it, I think, although you've never been in our office and been part of it, but I think I use it the same way you do. We use the WOW customer service training to help onboard our service staff. I really like the 10 ridiculously amazing processes. It seems like some overlap, but there's not. There's different details in each one that I think are important. So that's our get up and get rolling guide with our staff, as well as
get up and get rolling guide. That's good.
Yeah. As well as some management system training and carrier systems training. And that's their first quarter. And then we try to rotate. So agency retention, time management, and not Apex sales, whatever the new course is called. Agency growth.
We renamed it. Yeah.
So we try to rotate through those. And then our goal as an agency is, once we get through that with our staff, to have you come in and do the agency audit or the agency assessment, right? Mm-hmm. And that's important for me. I think that's going to be a fun time to calibrate myself, because you're right, I'm taking your material and am I teaching it, or where are the gaps that I'm blind to because it is my team?
You have blind spots, right? Like everybody does. It's part of business, or it's also like, hey, we've outgrown some things sometimes. Like you did so good that you outgrew some strategies.
Yeah. Oh, and also the explain and sell top insurance coverages. That's part of the
new, what did you call it earlier? The get up and go, get up and get going. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you so much. I think, we're obviously always here, and, the school offers so much opportunity. And I think, we hear a lot of times like, oh, I'm so busy, I can't do it. And I always tell people, like, that's exactly why you need to do it. Because if you're overwhelmed, your only job is get overwhelmed, because a leader that's overwhelmed is never going to be effective. And whatever you're doing isn't yielding a positive result. So you got to figure out, and I'm not saying it's just our stuff I think is the best, but there's other options out there. And so I get really frustrated with agencies who consistently just say, oh, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. I'm like, so what's your plan? If
Yeah.
you're busy,
Well,
you're just not effective.
the best part is we have a class in our agency school called time management, right?
Oh,
So if you don't know what to do, you can hop in that and you can make yourself more available. Simple things like voting while they're on the phone, one call resolution, making your notes. Don't write it down on paper.
You're making my heart sing right now. Like,
Yeah.
you should just come work for us and be a trainer, like, and it, right?
It's true. I mean, why do something twice when you can do it once? And I don't know about anybody else, but in school, when the dog ate my homework and I had to fill out the homework again for the second time, I did it halfway the second time.
Right.
I mean, it just wasn't as good a quality.
Yeah.
And I don't want my E&O on the line knowing it was the second or third time a CSR put notes into the system.
Yeah, I agree. Or they get in late and they're not date and time stamped correctly. There's just a million things to it. So, Joel, thank you so much for today. I think this was super fun and educational. And hey, there's a lot of ways to run an insurance agency out there. There's not one right or wrong, but I think Joel has a really unique approach to things. And I just thought it'd be so great for people to hear a little bit about how you got started. And just, I'm so excited for you because the level of data that you have so early on is going to serve you so much. I think you know that. When we go into agencies and they're like, I don't know what about new business last month. I'm like, we are going to get there, guys. But, the operating your business on facts, not feelings is one of our core foundations that just has to be. And you already have that being a scratch agency. So you're just going to put rocket fuel in this thing.
Yeah, hopefully. Looking forward to those days.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you
if
for
anybody has
having
any
us.
questions, let us know. But we appreciate you being a podcast guest.
Yeah, thank you so much.